The internet has done it again. After much complaining and a lot of people being terrified, within less than a day, Riot gave Smolder the Sonic treatment. And they managed to remove the uncanny volley. Now, even after this fix, for many people he will not feel perfect. None of us are. But look, it is incredible to see how fast Riot are with these fixes. So yes, at this point it is no secret that when Smolder was first revealed, people got jump scared. And as a result of this, some people had pretty wild theories as to why he looked like that. For example, there were actually some people who thought that originally Smolder was supposed to be a Vastaya. But at the last moment Riot turned around and they turned him into a dragon. Surely that was why he had those humanistic facial features? Well, it turns out that may not exactly be the case. Because alongside all the news about the season 2024, Riot also gave us the champion insights for Smolder. And here they reveal how he even came to be. Now, before we dive into this article, I really have to point out a detail. The main piece of art of this article already has the fixed face. Which means that before this article was revealed, they had to go back and they had to paint over his face and give him all the details. So now I wonder, what did the original version of this picture look like? What are you hiding, Riot? To be fair, this is also where we need to mention a very important thing. Yes, as a result of all the feedback, Riot is changing Smolder's textures. Especially around his face, so now he should look a lot better. And they confirmed that this will also reflect in other aspects around him. For example, they will also touch up on his splash art, which honestly I thought already looked fine. But yes, everything will be fixed eventually, but it should take a bit before it arrives even on PBE. This was confirmed, so when PBE goes up and everyone starts playing the old Smolder, just don't freak out. The fixes are coming. The original Sonic died for these sins. But now, into the article. At the beginning here, they give us a quick introduction of his role. Long story short, bot lane is a try-hard, miserable place which only attracts players of equal depression. I'm just paraphrasing Riot here. At least I think it counts as paraphrasing. They noticed that lately, bot lane has a lot of try-hardy champions, and they were missing someone cute and joyful. Though maybe a different kind of joyful, with the only champion carrying this miserable whole being Kog'Maw, though many may disagree. And so Smolder was introduced to help the lane feel a little bit more laid back. So, the post then goes into his gameplay. The idea here is very simple. He is supposed to be straightforward and fun to play. As Riot mentioned here, a lot of the recent marksmen are mechanically complex, such as Zeri, Samira, Aphelios or Neela, all of which require you to get some kind of a degree, be it mechanical engineering or social studies. But that's not Smolder's case. For context, let's very quickly go through his abilities. The only complexity you'll find here is around his passive and his Q. His passive gives you stacking damage on his basic abilities, kind of like Veigar's passive. And you gain the stacks by hitting enemy champions with your abilities, or by last hitting with your Q, just like Veigar or Nasus. Your Q is a very simple fireball, but it evolves depending on your stacks. At 25 stacks, it explodes in AoE, at 125 it also turns into a wave, and at 225 it also gets true damage burn and an execute. The reason why all of this is simple is because you don't really think about any of this. It all happens automatically. Next, his W is a big fireball that slows everyone. That's it. His E allows him to shortly fly over terrain as he's shooting nearby enemies. And his ultimate is just a big damaging line called down by his mother, which also heals him. That's it. Everything is very straightforward. So in this post they talk about how this simple gameplay translated into the design. The keywords here were cute dragon. That's the one egg in the basket they had. And so they started experimenting around it. And as you can see from the concept art, they tried a Spyro, Chonky Cat, Celestial Cat, Chinese Cat. Did they forget it's supposed to be a dragon? I don't think it was supposed to be a cat. Now it's obvious that the first Spyro version inspired the Smolder we got. Haha, psych! That's not true, it is actually the last one. And here's the quote. I explored different feels and personalities that could fit within the boundaries of cute. From the typical wide-eyed innocent little guy, to something more cocky or grumpy, but also cuddly. I think that's the Chonker Cat. That last one resonated with a lot of the team members. But we didn't want Smolder to feel bratty or unlikable. We looked for the right balance and focused on him being proud rather than cocky. Now here they call it the concept of princely and elevated with an interesting headpiece. And I have to say, I actually love this concept art. I love how the wings mimic a cloak. To me, this one has a lot more personality than the one we got. So why is this one the one we actually got? Yeah, as you'll see, this is actually the one we got. But from the footage, it is a little bit hard to see that he is actually a bit egoistic, though not obnoxious. And he does have the wings as a cloak, but it all kinda blends in. See, I can't really pin down why I like the concept art more than the model we got, but rest assured that the model we got and this concept art are supposed to be the same thing. We'll see how it all feels when it all gets onto PBE. As they then explained, they tried to make him overconfident, but not obnoxious. Also, he is in good company with someone like Shyvana or Aurelian Soul, although he is very different from them. At least in some ways, they are still dragons. But unlike them, Smolder is not an elemental dragon. Even though Aurelian is a celestial dragon and that's slightly different, but let's ignore that. The point is, Smolder is in fact a dragon from Kamavor. And so, for inspiration, they did actually look at the Kamavoran dragons from Legends of Runeterra. And so, as they say in the small print, lore mentioned. They then continue. The Kamavoran dragon that some players are familiar with from Legends of Runeterra has been twisted by the Black Mist. So we are trying to imagine a version from before the Ruination. The Imperial Dragons of Kamavor are immensely powerful creatures who had strong ties with the royal family before the Ruination. Of course, all of this was teased in Smolder's reveal. Once thought to be lost forever, we now know that their lineage lives in Smolder. And he's pretty stoked about it, though he doesn't quite understand the gravity of what it means. So yes, Smolder seems to be a rare link to the Kamavoran dragons. After which, the post dives into his lore. Smolder was separated from his mother after being stolen by Noxian Beastmasters. Their ship was destroyed before they could collect their reward, but the dragon hatchling was lost to the sea. After the waves carried it to an island, Smolder found himself in the care of an unlikely friend, who taught him some less than draconic mannerisms. So, let's break this down. First of all, Noxian sailed all the way to Kamavor to pillage and loot. That's quite the attitude. But somehow they managed to bring Smolder as an egg back to Valoran, where he ended up on an island. Now, if you look at Noxus, there are a few islands around that territory, but we really have no idea where Smolder ended up. It may not even be around Noxus, all we know is that he arrived somewhere around the main continent. Now after that, he met a young boy called Marinos, who taught him how to talk and stuff. So there is a lore reason behind why Smolder can talk. This was actually one of the points some people were confused about, me included. We had no idea why Smolder would be able to talk while even his mother can't. So, Riot actually explains this. As a result, Smolder walks, talks and jokes around like a human. And he drapes his wings on his back like a royal cape. So yeah, the concept we saw before is what was translated into the actual model. But over time, as the years passed, Marinos became an adult, he started his own family, and so he started to have less and less time to play with Smolder, which left Smolder with discovering his own powers on his own. All while Smolder aged a lot more slowly. Fast forward a bit, Smolder sneezes so hard an entire forest catches on fire, and suddenly it drew the attention of his mom, who arrives a little bit later. So for now, that is it for his narrative. Early impressions? Pretty cool, I'm just mostly excited about Camavor and dragons though. We'll wait for his full bio. So next the post dives into how they came up with this gameplay. Simply put, they wanted to give him the fantasy of learning. But because he is still just a child, his perspective is, if I keep shooting fire at everything, I will learn one day. And so that's how his stacking passive came to be. That's also why he can only fly a few feet. He is still in the process of learning how to fly. But they also explained that as his Q evolves, the fire itself actually gets closer to the fire of his mother. So really, the learning aspect is everywhere. And speaking of his mother, they also talked about a funny aspect of his ultimate. You see, while you are not able to see his mother in-game as a model, you still get to see her shadow, and more importantly, you get to hear her. And apparently, to create those sounds, they mix together a bunch of real animals. From tigers to hogs to buffaloes, crocodiles, dogs, snakes and mongooses. But of course, Smolder is her son, so he should also have some of these sounds in his sound effects. But for him to use a real animal, the writers used a real dog. And here's an example of how that sound ended up in his recall. To end this post, Riot talks about how they have spent a lot of time on the animations and the sound effects, to make sure it really feels like you are not only carrying power, but also you can feel how the power evolves. Though, at the same time, they were afraid that Smolder's mother would overshadow him, all puns intended. Apparently in early testing, people thought that Smolder was the one doing the massive fire breath, so they had to iterate on it a few times. And they even made the ability heal him to further separate him from his mother. After which, suddenly, people started getting the right idea. His mom was with him and she was teaching him how to harness his powers. Fun fact, when Smolder gets healed by his mom, you can actually see tiny hearts of fire. And finally, we got one last quote to end this post. Will he be a menace that ends the world? Who's to say? Is he gonna be an ally to all? The world is his oyster, and he's gonna burn it. Well, that doesn't sound wholesome, but that's how we ended up with Smolder. Honestly, overall, it is a pretty good idea for a champion. The gameplay is gonna be good because it is simple and AD carries really need simple champions now. And even aesthetically, over time it proves that cuter champions do better. And since you can't really fit a full dragon onto the Summoner's Rift, I'll take it. Though I will say, I am still happy they are fixing his face, because his face is the only thing people didn't like. So it was cool to see that Riot pushed for it in less than a day. So now Smolder is on his way to make bot lane a better place. Wait, people are gonna play Smolder with Yuumi because they are both cute. Oh no.